Hi, everyone. I'm really delighted to be here. So it's really nice event. And today, I will be speaking about launch sizing framework. I'm Senior Product Marketing Manager at Depop. Depop is a circular fashion marketplace, which has over 26 million users worldwide. And this is actually a place where people buy and sell used clothes. And it's very popular, especially among young people who want to express themselves through fashion. Last couple of years, I'm working on product marketing there. But before joining Depop, I worked in Skyscanner, also marketplace, also has a lot of users. But my way to product marketing manager as a title actually happened. This transition happened in Skyscanner. I joined there as marketing manager focused on growth in EMEA. And before pandemic, I was working on scaling the product in EMEA markets. And during the pandemic, I moved to product marketing team to help position product and launch new features that help to adapt to new travel realities. As we know, during pandemic, a lot of travel was restricted and needs of travelers slightly changed. Before joining Skyscanner, I worked at many industries. They may sound like very different and not related at all, but it always was about growing digital products within these industries. And over my experience, I worked with both B2B and B2C and have quite good view and understanding what is different and what is similar there. And overall, I'm really passionate about data-driven approach because I come from growth, but also I know that in product marketing, not everything is easy to measure. So I had to make peace with that. And I'm really passionate about problem solving, and especially when it comes to teams process and the way teams work and communicate. So today I want to cover first what is launch sizing framework and why it should be helpful to PMMs. Key steps how to design it for your organization, and I will give you an example of my framework. I slightly simplified and changed it to be more industry agnostic, so it would be more applicable, not only for cases I work on, and how actually it could be used and how it should help to resolve some of the key challenges that we face in our role. So why we actually need it? Most of product marketing managers, as part of their role, is actually launching new products and features. And also from very common challenges, we know that it can be quite challenging and difficult to work with other teams because our role is so cross-functional and we depend so much on how early we're involved in the planning process and our relationship with stakeholders. And very often, the top challenge actually from a State of Go-to-Market report made by Product Marketing Alliance, where many of PMMs answered survey, it's that product doesn't communicate roadmaps and timelines effectively. Some of them also collecting customer research fast enough to inform plans, difficulties communicating plans, aligning stakeholders, cross-functional work is hard to stay on top, and repeatable, not defined process. For me, so what I see here, it's actually we know how much product marketing manager role, how much expertise and depth it needs. Last day, just yesterday, we talked about that you come to product marketing after having multiple roles across different business areas where you can have like really broad overview of how all things are connected and how to bring the best value of that experience. But when we know how to do things really good and efficient and right, we are involved so late that we often don't have time to actually do all of those things, and there is, as here, like not enough time to collect customer, to do like customer research. And if there was a process, something that helps to prioritize, it could actually help. So also we know that over half of PMMs work on more than 3 products and simultaneously, and also the biggest chunk, biggest segment, it's 32% have to manage more than 5. So I assume it can be like really stressful. I've been in these shoes as well, so it can be you want to do your work really great, but then you're a bit like stretched on too many projects in very short time. So this is why I thought of launch sizing framework. I also heard many organizations use certain similar framework to tire launches or to do like some sort of grading or priority, but I wasn't able to find like really ready-to-use framework on the internet, so I had to come up with something that worked in my organization and worked for me. So what it does, it helps to prioritize product marketing resources on projects where product marketing can drive the most of impact, where it's the most important. It also helps to align stakeholders on priorities, because as soon as you have like a framework, a system, and it's aligned in the organization what is the most important for product marketing to work on, then it becomes much easier to align stakeholders. And once you have this process and alignment, it actually gives them clear reason why you should be involved early in process. And you can even, as part of the framework, you can even have some sort of like examples for which size, how soon you need to be involved, and why, because we'll speak also about sizing criteria. So how to design it? I think it should be like 3 simple steps. It may sound too obvious, but I found it useful. So you need to define the criteria by which you decide size and priority of this launch. Then you can try to evaluate, like roughly, what time and resources each size would take. And most importantly, you need to align this with key stakeholders and implement. Otherwise, it just stays in your head and it's not less helpful. And how I would approach defining size criteria. So you can look back at launches that you already had, you already managed, and think what made them more important for product marketing to get involved, and also what made them more or less time and resources consuming. So if you can come up with like few criteria, it could be really helpful. Here are criteria that I use, but I appreciate they can be very different to many businesses and to your company goals. So some of them, they impact both the criteria for both size and priority, and some of them like purely size because it's project complexity. So when we talk about size and priority, as one of criteria, it's benefit from awareness. So how much your product or company would benefit from your audience being aware about this product or feature or update you're doing. So some questions that could help to define, it's, do you need users to make a decision to choose this feature or product. So do they need really to be aware of it? Because sometimes some updates, they're just in the flow and very easily discoverable, but for others, users need to appreciate the value of it and actually adopt and use it. And also this adoption, how much benefit to business it will bring. And some of other, it may sound not easily measurable, but will it make your users excited? So if this is something that they actually would be, your users would be excited about, so you would improve your advocacy, you would improve your satisfaction, user satisfaction, and this would be great impact, even though it's not always easily measurable. And last, but I think one of the most important, is it something that helps to reinforce your product or business positioning? We work hard on defining positioning for our products or services, but there are a lot of features we're doing or developing. Some of them, they can be a proof point, something that really reinforces it and makes it not just the way you want it to be positioned, makes the way users can actually see and feel it. Another criteria for sizing, it's change of experience. So how I say this, how big this change is. If it's as big change as, for example, full design refresh, where you change navigation, where you change how everything looks, your users may come very surprised, and you need to manage them through adopting this new way your product works. Then probably you need to spend more time in working this launch to make sure that you understand all the risks, you understand how it would be perceived, you understand how you want it to be perceived, so you really dedicate a lot of time to it, even if it's not always related to awareness-driving activities. And also how many customers are impacted. The more customers are impacted by change, the higher risks, and the higher risks, the more important is to make this launch really thoughtful and careful. And talking about careful, sensitivity, also not very easy to measure, but if it's something about where users have it's about the topic where people may have their reservations already, or something they worry about, or something they deeply care about, and you make change in that area, you want to make sure that you really think this through. You want to make sure that you dedicate your time on research. You want to make sure that you position it in the right way, that you choose right words to communicate this change, that you really make it as smooth and as good as possible, and you don't have any backlash and media after implementing the change. And as a result of those three, there is a project complexity. So how many functions actually and teams and people do you need to involve in aligning, and how many do you need to involve in execution? So once you came up with few sizing criteria, I wouldn't recommend more than 4. So, but I already have 4, but better not to have too many. So could you also then think back of launches that you already launched, and based on criteria that you've chosen, could you try to categorize them in several sizes, probably from 2 to 4, and then roughly estimate what time and resources made sense for each size? I'm not talking how much it took, I'm talking about how much resources made sense. So it's slightly different, but when you reflect back, I think you can know how you would want things to be done, and based already on learnings. And you can also, for each size, if there are not too many of them, it shouldn't be very difficult to make high-level view of what scale of project would be, and what level of support you might need, and what would be very high-level process for it. And most important, once you've done this work, you need to align this with stakeholders. You need to achieve the shared understanding that what is important for you to be involved is actually shared, and they know that, oh yeah, we are going to apply this change. This must be very important to involve product marketing early on. And also, it would help then, if you align about potential resources and sizes, you can secure resources from other teams, for example, marketing resources. Marketing team may have their own calendar with campaigns, and you need to fit in with your product launch. So by having this size and aligned view of what resources it would take, you can start doing this before actually diving into the project and before many things are defined. And this high-level process that you define for the launch sizing, you need also to align with key stakeholders. So then making them follow it, and then it can be really more proactive in defining your workload and what launches you work on, how many of them at the same time, and how soon you get there. So this is an example of my framework. I slightly simplified it and made it more agnostic, so it's not exact copy, but it's the way of thinking is the same. So we have those sizing criteria. You can try to use points to evaluate them, or just to have understanding, oh, many of those are low or many of those are high. So it should help you to move this from low to high. And there would be I use t-shirt sizes, but you can use tires or anything else that makes sense to you. For small launches, I suggest that this is something where it's not likely to be super sensitive or need to have huge campaign behind, and it can be based on, this launch can leverage existing knowledge, so it's not something where I need to contribute a lot of time to research to understand problem space and market. And it's likely where go-to-market communication is integrated in ongoing communication. So you could, for example, add key messaging to your blog, or add it to monthly newsletter. Make sure that you surface it, but it's not necessarily having additional resources dedicated specifically to this launch. So this is something I see as small. And how early PMM could be involved? I mean, for this kind of project, you can align with your stakeholders, and you should not be knowing how many weeks make sense to you, and you can align on this number of weeks. Medium-sized launch I see as something that has significant inbound contribution, where I need really to spend time on research. I need really to think through all the risks. I really need to define positioning of this new feature, and I likely to need a dedicated go-to-market team, so representative from every function involved to work cross-functionally on this launch. And it could be, it's likely to be, especially if it's awareness, something related with awareness-driven activity. It could leverage campaigns with variety of channels where we need to secure certain time and budget. And how early in this kind of launch PMM should be involved? I think ideally during product strategy and roadmap planning, so you can integrate it into marketing roadmap, and you can also have enough time to do your research and to do all your due diligence. And large, I suggest large, it's not a launch which you have all the time. It's something probably one of few most significant things planned for the year. It can be go-to-market program, which is more than go-to-market campaign. It could be multiple phases of launching this feature or experience. It's likely to have significant resources allocated, so you need people who really contribute to this and who really in it, dedicating a lot of time. And how early I would want to be involved in projects like this? I would want to be involved as early as possible, when it's actually the stage of concept, so where there is just opportunity assessment, even before it becomes a strategy. I would really want to be contributing to strategic discovery to help to make it fit for market and not just react on what is already predefined, but to really contribute to be a strategic advisor, as was mentioned before, as it's really important part of our role. So, and how to use it? I think it becomes really handy during longer-term planning cycles. So most of companies have like annual, quarterly. If you don't have, if you work in smaller company and you don't have any planning cycle, you can come up with your own just things with stakeholders, what makes sense to you. And you need to evaluate, like, you would evaluate size and priority based on criteria that you defined, and your stakeholders at this moment already are on board with you what is most important and what criteria are. And then you can agree with stakeholders on key launches, what basically, based on your capacity, how many of them at what time you can take or your team can take, what size they could be, what exactly gets this priority and are bigger or smaller launches, and how soon you need to start working on it. So as outcome from implementing framework, you can have control over what launches to start working on and when, instead of just reacting on product roadmap or depending on product communicating to you roadmap efficiently. You can be way ahead and to be proactive in defining what is your product marketing roadmap looks like. You can have, it also helps better alignment with product and marketing stakeholders on priorities and resources that you need to dedicate to each launch. And also, with this shared understanding, it gives your stakeholders really clear reason why you should be involved earlier, because they understand that you need, it's part of your process, you need to size launch, that you need to make sure that you allocate appropriate resources. It's a aligned process, so it should be helpful. And I hope that in the end, you don't need that much of lavender to reduce stress, and you have like really clear, sorted view of what's coming next. Your product launches are prioritized and aligned to capacity, and yeah, so you can just leverage it at work. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was brilliant. The people, they love a go-to-market launch, so there's loads of questions coming in. So we'll ask you a couple of questions and then we'll let you go. What processes do you use to measure the impact of a launch? How would you determine if it's been successful or not?
So it's a very good question, because we know that not everything is really easy to measure, especially when you launch product. It's not very easy to distinguish what is contribution of your positioning and messaging and communication, and what is just the way how good and ready product is. So we have, it's shared goal with product manager. For example, having product adoption as shared goal really helps, because then you measure it as common success, and product adoption is something that you can measure. But it depends on the launch. Sometimes launch goal could be just to make sure it goes smooth. If you do something like if you launch feature that starts collecting users' data, for example, you don't want any backlash. You want users' data. So how smooth and successful it goes, it also could be success criteria. So it depends on every launch.
Cool. Yeah, makes sense. And a follow-up to that is, you mentioned that predicting sort of user excitement is difficult to do before a launch, but are there any ways that you think you can sort of, predict that in a way?
So I don't think you can predict it in like really measurable way, but some problems are, from research you can see if users really care about some problem they have, and if what you're about to launch really resolves it and makes it life much better. Also, sometimes users actually ask for features, and they ask about something, and if it's something they asked for, you may assume that they would be more excited about it.
Yeah, there was one that was just there a second ago, which was around, oh, here we go. Yeah, so some launches, I guess, are maybe more driven towards acquiring new customers. Others are maybe to reduce churn or make existing customers happier. How do you go about weighing up the benefits of the two of those in your launch framework?
So it's really, I think it's very common challenge, because what is very important for the company and for product, it can be something complex, something really important to develop, but it may not benefit that much from product marketing. comparing to some other features. And I would ask stakeholder, why do you think this launch is sensitive? Or why do you think it would benefit from awareness? And in this conversation, you can actually either discover that, oh yeah, it makes sense, probably it's more sensitive than I thought before, so probably should be high priority. Or during this conversation, you can come up with, actually, as we discussed, you see that it's not that sensitive comparing to other products we're working on, so this launch has less priority than the other one.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's a really good question here. The second one down is, what happens if a PM or senior stakeholder thinks that a launch is really important and maybe disagrees with your framework assessment? How do you go about sort of getting to a place of agreement?
Yeah, I think by mistake I just answered that one and not the one you asked me before. So should you repeat, or if everyone got this? And yeah, I can repeat, like summarize. Challenge them on the criteria, because before you aligned on criteria, so you can ask them why it's sensitive, why it would benefit from awareness, etc. And the one which I didn't answer was?
It was around the difference between optimizing for user adoption or making existing users happier.
Yeah. So, I mean, making users satisfied is actually probably would be part of product adoption, because it would make them to stick to a product and actually use it. But some updates, they not necessarily need cautious decision for user to be adopted, but something they will be happy about this update. And then it would be like more in the excitement area. But adoption, it's actually something more measurable, but both of them would benefit from driving awareness about a feature.
Cool, great. Okay, well, I'm sure we could go through all of the questions here, but I think maybe people can just come up and ask you and they can find you later today. So thank you very much one more time. Elizabeth, can we give Elizabeth a round of applause, please? Thank you.
Thank you. I can see someone say Slava Ukraini. Heroям slava.